welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shootin' Show, and welcome again to this week's program. We've got a great show for you today. We have some gun tests that I think you're going to find really interesting. We have some great guests for you. Let me remind you folks who are watching on satellite, please remember that our show is free to cable companies and local TV stations. So please, if you don't mind, let your local cable company or television station know that we are there, and they can even make money on our show because we allow some commercial time left in our program just for them. So anyway, let's get off to a fire-breathing start today with another Shootin' Show. Now today, friends, we have the most unusual gun that we featured on the program in a while. And I say unusual because it's certainly a concept that most of us have not seen before. This is called the Thunder 5. And certainly from the close-ups, you can see that it looks a little different than your standard revolver. And believe me, Thunder 5 does give this gun a good description of what it is, because it shoots a 45 Colt cartridge, but it also shoots up to a 3-inch 410. It has 5 in the cylinder, and it works like any other revolver. The cylinder comes out to the right, and it will take 5 of these 3-inch 410s. Now, friends, this is a little different concept, as I said earlier, than we normally think of, because literally what you have, besides a cartridge revolver shooting the 45 Colt cartridge, which is certainly a powerful cartridge in its own right, but you also essentially have a 5-shot handheld repeating shotgun. And here in Louisiana, this is such a great idea because to me this would be the snake gun to end all snake guns. It's just a fabulous idea. This is made by some people called Mill Incorporated, M-I-L Incorporated, in Piney Flats, Tennessee. And your local dealer can find this in their catalogs, and they can purchase these guns. They're sort of just now getting out around the country. I've been aware of this gun now for about a year and a half, but we're just starting to see them. And it's not an inexpensive gun. This particular revolver retails for a little over $500. So it is not inexpensive, but from our experience with it over the past couple of days that we've had shooting it, it is very well made. It functions extremely well, just a little differently, because when you pull the cylinder out, turn over this way, take the cylinder out, the cartridges, of course, or the shotgun cases have to be pulled out by hand. The ejector just starts them out. It looks like it has about a 2-inch barrel, but with this long cylinder, it's about the size of, say, a 3 or 4-inch 357 Magnum. It is heavy. Recoil is surprisingly light. I was concerned about how much recoil it was going to have with the 3-inch shells, but they're really light. And it, of course, it is 100% legal. It has rifling in the barrel, and we're going to look at it in just a moment in shooting. Another point that is very different on this revolver than on most others, or certainly any others that I'm aware of, it has a manual safety. Now this is a transfer bar action anyway. It's a very safe action, but you have a lever. It's ambidextrous on both sides of the hammer, and what it does, it pulls a block into position where the hammer cannot go forward and hit the firing pin. So again, we like to bring you folks different things as well as things you're familiar with here on the program, and believe me, this is different. Now friends, remember, here we are on the range. A lot of you who are watching the program for the first time can't see the hearing protection that I have in my ears. We never shoot without safety glasses and without hearing protection. It's just no fun shooting if we're going to leave the range with our eyes or our ears hurting. So this is something, and please don't think because I'm not wearing headphones, I do have some, in fact, state-of-the-art hearing protectors in my ears, and they do protect them. So let's shoot and let you take a look at recoil in the gun. We have a couple of 45 Colt cartridges in the cylinder, followed by 3 3-inch Magnum 410 shot shells. So let's take a look at it and let you see it's just not nearly as much recoil as you might think. Yes, it is. It's a whole different experience shooting, but wasn't bad at all. Now, friends, another load that will go really well in the Thunder 5, this is a special 410 buckshot load. It has three 35 caliber buckshot lined up, stacked, in fact, in front of each other here in the shot shell. And essentially, to be brief about it, what it amounts to is shooting one of these buckshot shells is like shooting three 38 specials at one time. So we're going to pattern these in just a minute, but this is something that you might be aware of. I'll tell you what, for home defense, as well as snakes or varmints around your place or wherever, if you're in the outdoors, I tell you, at close range, this would be a tremendous home defense gun because of the pattern it's going to put out. And the 410, listen, up close and personal, the 410 is a doggone effective combination. I don't know whether to call it a bullet or a shot charge or what. Let's call it an effective combination. We're going to look at patterns in just a moment. All right, friends, we've put 5 of the 45 Colt cartridges in our Thunder 5 cylinder here, and we'll close it. And let's we're at about 10 feet. Let's just see what kind of close range pattern or group that the gun will shoot. Tell you the truth, this is the first time I've done that. And let's just see what it looks like, because the barrel is rifled. Let's see what kind of pattern we get. And we're going to be shooting at the center circle. So let's see what it looks like on paper on our target. Here we go. Right. All right, let's see where else it's going to hit. Well, for 5 shots, let's take a look at our group there. And we're fairly close, about 15 or so feet, actual measurement. And truthfully, the sights on the gun are somewhat rudimentary. But you know, you can darn sure hit what you're aiming at there. That's not a real bad group, certainly, for what we're talking about. This is with the 45 Colt. Now then, let's take a shot charge, a 410 shot charge, and move to the next target. All right, friends, let's shoot our central target there in the middle with the 3-inch 410 shot shell, and this is number 7.5 shot. And let's see, again, at about 10 or 15 feet, let's see what sort of pattern it makes out of the Thunder 5. Here we go. Woo! Well, it definitely spreads out. So I would suggest, of course, this would be great for snakes, but my goodness, this entire area of the target is pretty well peppered with shot. I'll tell you what, it'd be a good close range bird gun too. So let's take one more shot with it at close range with our 3-inch 410 on this third target, and let's see what it would look like. And let's say if you did have to use it in a defensive situation, or you had in fact a close range snake, just like woo. And of course, the hole here in the center is where the shot cup went through. But that's about a 10-inch pattern. And I'll tell you what, friends, that's talk about a devastating gun on snakes or anything else like that. Or in fact, if you were in an apartment, and of course this shot is not going to penetrate walls, this is an alternative, the Thunder 5. And I tell you what, it's just a different concept than anything we've seen before, but it's one impressive handgun. All right, friends, we're going to try one more load on our center target there. And of course, it has a lot of little bitty holes in it. We're going to try the triple-aught buckshot load, the 3 buckshot, and let's try it and see what kind of pattern that it makes. We'll be shooting at the center ring on our target. So let's see what that looks like so. Okay, friends, we're looking here at our target, and these are the 3 holes that the buckshot made in the target. And of course, it spreads, even at close range, it spreads pretty quickly. But for a defensive load, My goodness, with 5 of those in the gun, that would be 15 holes, in fact, in the target up close. So it's most impressive. I would certainly say it's most preferable at close range, but again, the Thunder 5, what can I say?
There's a movement in this country to surrender the Second Amendment.
Listen to this. There is no reason for anyone in this country, anyone except a police officer or a military person, to buy, to own, to have, to use a handgun.
And, still quoting, the only way to do that is to change the Constitution.
That's not some nobody. That's the president of NBC News.
You see, they want to repeal your constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Well, you can help stop it by joining the NRA.
For just $25, you'll get a year of great magazines and member benefits, and you'll be where all honest gun owners belong, in the NRA.
If you want to keep the rights your founding fathers entrusted to you,
the rights the Constitution guarantees to you.
The rights the NRA protects for you.
call now.
You know, friends, we're so happy to have the National Rifle Association as one of our new sponsors. I tell you, they're doing a terrific job, and we're going to help them in every way that we can. Right now, our gun rights are under assault, and what we have, unfortunately, we have people that really don't know much about guns who are trying to tell us where we should and shouldn't use them. And in fact, this is the great Ruger Mini 14, and we intend to test this on next week's program. One of the finest guns of its type that's ever been made by anybody. And of course, this one's in stainless steel. It's almost indestructible in the realm of what the gun is designed to do. But you know what? There are people out there, and a lot of them in the media, a lot of them in Washington, D.C., unfortunately, who do not think that you and I should be able to own guns like this. This is a semi-automatic gun. It holds 20. In this magazine, it comes with a 5-round magazine. And you know, semi-automatic guns like this have been around since around 1900. Certainly not the Mini 14, but other semi-automatics have been around that long. You know, friends, the gun is not the problem. What we're facing is a crisis in our society. We've got a moral breakdown. Too many families break up. There aren't enough fathers at home helping to control their children. A lot of these young people are growing up in cities, and they have no discipline whatsoever. And you know what? If you let a kid grow up any way he wants to, it won't necessarily be for the good. And that's the problem we're facing now. So, in order to try and disarm some of these folks who are doing bad, what some of these people in Washington want to do is disarm all of us. Well, you know what, friends? I don't agree with that at all. We shouldn't blame the machine for something that's going on in society. And I tell you what, folks, they're further along than we realize. And it won't be long if, in fact, some of these bills that have been introduced in Congress get passed, that you and I will not be able to own guns like this that we've enjoyed owning and shooting and using for self-defense for many years now. So, friends, we have got to start writing letters. We've got to start contacting our Congress people, and we've got to let them know what we think. The gun is not the problem. The problem is a moral breakdown in society. And until we do something about that, it won't matter if you take all the guns away. You're still going to have a terribly violent society. That's the root of the problem, and that's what we're going to try and work on. You know, friends, I want to keep the semi-automatics that I have, and I enjoy shooting it, being a long gun or a handgun, pistol, whatever, or a shotgun or a .22 rifle. I like shooting some of the semi-automatics, and I like owning them. And I don't think someone far away who doesn't know anything about me or anyone that I know should tell us that we can't own these because of some lame-brained idea they have. So, friends, we're in the fight, and I tell you what, it's further along than we realize. We've got to stand up for our rights.
Friends, you can make that call that counts. Join the NRA. That number is 1-800-952-8700, Visa and MasterCard. And the Shootin' Show will be right back after this 1-minute break for your local cable company or television station. And now, friends, we're very proud to present Lieutenant Colonel Art Alphin, retired, with his feature this week. And for information on the great A-Square rifles and ammunition, you can write to them at A-Square, 1 Industrial Park, Bedford, Kentucky. That zip code is 40006. Or you can give them a call at area 502-255-7456.
Throughout the 1600s, many attempts were made to improve upon the ignition of the matchlock. Some of these you might be familiar with, such as this wheel lock. Though very reliable, the wheel lock was slow to operate, expensive to manufacture, and difficult to maintain in the field. The wheel lock used hardened iron and a lump of iron pyrite in order to throw sparks and ignite the charge. This idea carried forward using hardened iron and a piece of flint and resulted in another weapon, the snafonce. After suitable modification, this evolved into the flintlock. Our sample today is a reproduction of a British Brown Bess and is quite representative of all flintlock smoothbore muskets. Though it may look a bit strange today, the flintlock was, for its day and age, quite simple and reliable. A hammer was mounted on the side of the weapon, powered by a spring and released by a trigger. This hammer had a set of screw jaws which held a piece of flint rigidly in place. At a point under the hammer's arc of travel, a touch hole was drilled to the interior of the barrel. Underneath this touch hole, a pan was mounted on the side of the weapon in which priming powder could be placed. On the forward edge of this pan, another spring-powered part, the frizzen, was mounted on a hinge. This frizzen served double duty. When the weapon was cocked, it covered the pan, keeping the priming powder in place. When the hammer was released and traveled forward, the flint struck the upper wing of the frizzen, causing sparks and knocking the frizzen forward. These sparks then fell into the pan, igniting the priming powder. As manufacturing and metallurgical skill increased, the weapons were made stronger. The shoulder-fired weapon decreased in weight to the point where a man could hold and fire it without use of the fork rest. Many methods of combining the pike with a firearm were tried, such as this plug bayonet. For obvious reasons, the plug bayonet was not entirely satisfactory. Within a few short years, however, this had evolved into the socket bayonet, wherein a sleeve slipped over and locked onto the outside of the muzzle of the weapon. These developments all came together in the flintlock smoothbore musket, which was in general issue by the early 1700s. The flintlock smoothbore was loaded from a paper cartridge. This is not a cartridge as you understand it today, but simply a paper envelope containing a pre-measured amount of powder and a leaden ball. The soldier drew the paper cartridge from his ammunition pouch and tore the cartridge in half by biting on the ball and wrenching the remainder of the paper away. He then poured a small amount of powder into the priming pan, closed the frizzen, and dropped the butt on the ground. The remainder of the powder was poured down the barrel and the paper discarded. He then took the leaden ball from his teeth and dropped it down the barrel, discarding any paper which remained. You should note that though the bore of the Brown Bess ran from 73 to 75 caliber, it fired a 69 caliber ball. All flintlock smoothbores used balls of similar undersized dimensions. This was done because black powder, a mixture of charcoal, saltpeter, and sulfur, left behind large quantities of fouling in the barrel. If the weapon was to be loaded after 4 or 5 shots, this gap between the ball and barrel had to exist or the ball could not be rammed home. After dropping the ball into the barrel, The soldier withdrew the ramrod, rammed the ball home, and returned the ramrod underneath the barrel. He then placed the weapon to his shoulder and pulled the trigger. You should also understand that the soldier did not aim. The sloppy fit between barrel and ball made the weapon hopelessly inaccurate. Aiming, therefore, was really of no consequence whatsoever. What you think is a front sight mounted on this weapon is in fact a bayonet lug. It couldn't be placed on the underside of the weapon because that's where the ramrod had to go. In use, the whole thing looked something like this. Our shooter has fired 5 shots in roughly 1 minute and 12 seconds. You can see how much fouling has been left behind on the weapon and on his hands with such relatively little firing. His target represented a formation of men. The inaccuracy of the weapon is readily obvious. The 5 hits from 7 shots total are circled in red. On our chart, however, the Brown Bess looks quite good. You will note that it has roughly the same range as the matchlock, and yet its volume of fire is easily triple that of the matchlock. Further, the chart does not tell the whole story. With the bayonet affixed to this weapon, there was no longer a need for the pike. Now every man could be issued a musket, and every man could fire. The changes wrought by the emphasis on gunfire were immense. Gone were the tercios of the Spanish and the brigades of the Swedish. Instead, the line formation was instituted. Depending upon the nation involved, this varied from 2 to 5 ranks deep and generally employed volley fire by platoon or by rank. Though the line formation does allow every man to fire his weapon, it is unwieldy. This created a need for drill. The musket's rate of fire depended upon its mechanical manipulation by the soldier. This created still more need for drill. You should also remember that the weapon had to be fired from a standing position, and that most of the time the soldier was working on loading the musket, not on firing it. Since he was 60 yards or less from the enemy, the volleys that came crashing into his ranks killed or wounded many of those about him. The only way to keep the soldier efficiently at his task of loading and firing the musket was to emphasize discipline and drill above all other soldierly qualities. The smoothbore musket and line formation evolved into what we call linear warfare. It was carried to its height by Frederick the Great. In addition to instituting a rigidity in drill and discipline which no other army could match, Frederick also introduced the iron ramrod. Unlike the normal wooden ramrod of the day, the iron ramrod could be plied vigorously, regardless of how fouled the barrel became. In Frederick's army, rates of fire frequently reached 5 rounds per minute, and his battalions took on the nickname of walking batteries. A good example of the effect of this volume of fire is the Battle of Minden in 1759. In this battle, the Prussians, with their Hanoverian and British allies, literally blew the French cavalry off the field with a storm of lead. Cavalry never again formed up on the main line of battle. Despite this emphasis on fire, one cannot ignore the bayonet. Even 5 rounds a minute could not always prevent enemy infantry or cavalry from reaching your position. But the bayonet could stop the horses of the cavalry. And when the enemy was demoralized by the untiring fury of the crashing volleys, he could frequently be pushed from the field by the judicious application of the bayonet. Though it may look crude today, the flintlock smoothbore musket was a vast improvement over anything that had gone before. When complemented with the organization, the drill, the tactics, the drill, the discipline, and the incessant, mind-numbing drill of linear warfare, the flintlock smoothbore and the bayonet were extremely effective weapons.
All right, friends, I'm holding a standard 1911 Colt. In fact, this is our 1991 Colt, which is one of my favorite handguns. And here's the standard magazine for the Colt, which is a 7-shot standard 1911 magazine. Well, let me show you something a little different. Now then, friends, we looked at the 7-shot magazine. This is a 15-shot magazine for your standard 1911, made by USA Magazines, a company in California. And they have sent us several magazines for testing, and we really appreciate their efforts on our behalf. You know, this makes the 1911 going from a possible of 8 potential shots, 7 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, up to 16 shots, 15 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. So that gives your 45 ACP a lot more possible shots. All right, it works just like any other 45 ACP magazine. And we've got our slide back, and we're going to load it. And just to show you what a 15-shot 45 ACP looks and sounds like, see our target over here. Now, friends, that's something we hadn't been able to do with 45. But the magazine functions real well in our 1991 Colt, and it's just fun. It's neat. I don't know if some of the IPSC clubs, in fact, I want to mention that USA Magazines are making an 11-shot magazine, 10 or 11 shots for the 45 that will be legal in IPSC shooting. And we want to get a couple of those and try it. But our experience with the recent USA products, USA Magazine products, has been real good. Here is a 30-shot magazine for a Glock, the 9mm Glock. And this is a 20-round magazine, and for the SKS 7.6239, and they make this in a variety of lengths. And they also make it, you know, there's some question as to the legality on some models of the SKS on whether it's legal to change from a fixed magazine to a detachable. So they make these magazines both ways for the SKS. They make a model that is non-detachable, and then they also make one that will detach from the gun if you have one of the proper guns for that. So we've had really good luck with these. We've tried several of their extended SKS magazines. And here's another one. If you have a stainless steel Mini 14, they have, and I don't know if this is stainless steel or nickel plate, but it looks really good. This is for the Mini 14 223, and something we'll talk about at another point. But friends, I would, if you have a semi-automatic gun, we don't know what the government regulations are going to be in the future. So if you want high-capacity magazines, I suggest that in the next few months you think about buying some if you want them, because the government may cut off the availability of the higher capacity magazines. Now, we don't agree with their reasoning, but they may do it. So anyway, USA Magazines, their quality has come a long way in the past several years. They're very nice people, and the things that we have from them, it works. And what more can you say? It works.
Okay, friends, get your pencils out because you'll want this. You can have the address here of USA Magazines at Post Office Box 39115, Downey, California. That zip code is 90241. Or you can call them at 1-800-872-2577. Now, remember what we've been saying during the program now. The government may stop the availability on the extended magazines. Of course, USA Magazines makes a number of magazines to fit different firearms, but if you want some of the extended magazines, you better give them a call and stock up because regulations may come along that take these away from us. So, USA Magazines, we do appreciate their assistance on our program, and please, if you call them, tell them that you saw it on The Shootin' Show. Now, stay tuned for more of The Shootin' Show after this 1-minute break for your local cable company or television station.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a rare treat here today. We're over visiting with Mr. W.H. Bill Jordan, and he has been a legendary figure to myself and many of the readers of the firearms magazines for many years, and I'm happy to report that he is just as nice an individual as you get the impression from reading his column. So we're so appreciative of being in his home today, and we're going to visit with him just for a few minutes, and he's going to show us some of his favorite firearms. And sir, I want to say thanks again for allowing us to come over today and visit with you, and I know that a lot of our viewers are really going to enjoy our conversation with you.
Well, real glad to be here, Johnny.
Well, absolutely.
And I mean that, because at 82 years old, every morning you're glad to be here.
I told him the other day, I said, if I'm in half his condition, if I live to reach his age, well, I'll be extremely happy about that, because, you know, we commented a moment ago, both of us in the same picture, we sort of fill it up there. Well, anyway, he's going to show us some guns here, and we're going to hear some stories. And we're just so glad to have him on camera today. And needless to say, most of the people who read Mr. Jordan, or in fact, he told me to call him Bill earlier, are very familiar with a lot of the things he has done in the past. To give you just a little bit of background on Bill Jordan, he was a Border Patrolman in the Marine Corps, and back to the Border Patrol, I think back to the Marine Corps one time, and has done a lot of work for the National Rifle Association as far as being a field representative, has done exhibition shooting in many, many different areas, has done a lot of television in past years. And let me tell you what, he still today is an active shooter and hunter, and certainly one of my very favorite gun writers of all time. So tell us, sir, what's that, show us that handgun over on your desk there, please. And tell us what that is.
Johnny, this was a gun that I was on the board of directors for the National Rifle Association. The president and one of his officials of Smith & Wesson showed up with this gun. Many years before, I had talked with another president about, he wanted to know what my idea of the ideal handgun for a law enforcement officer would be. And I told him exactly what I had in mind. And by golly, they came out with it, and they called it the Combat Magnum. It was a lighter frame 357 Magnum. It has become, I believe, the most popular gun that they've ever made, and there have been many offshoots from it in the same frame, but that they call by a different name. but still the same size gun, the same general everything, except for a little bit of modification for special occasions or special uses. But they presented me with this gun. It's really a beautiful gun. See if I can get it out of here.
Let me see if I can get a close-up on that.
All right. You notice that the hammer is tied down. That's because this is by way of being quite a collector's item, and if someone picked it up and snapped the trigger, snapped the hammer, it would leave some marks there on the cylinder, which would knock its value as a collector's item. And I didn't want that to happen, so I've got this hammer tied down so it can't come back. It's really a beautiful piece of work as a firearm.
Oh, it really is. It really is.
By the way, the grips were my design too. They even had these grips made up using my design when they made this gun up. And along with it, this is a facsimile of the letter that came, a small copy of the letter that came with it. So of course it's something that I'm real proud of, and I don't plan to part with this one. I did part with the first one of the combat magnums, but somebody wanted a whole lot more than I could stand, so I didn't have it.
You know, friends, I get to stand behind the camera on interviews sometimes, and it's so enjoyable. So we're just going to have a little conversation here with Bill Jordan and ask his opinion. And let me tell you what, his opinion does carry some weight, because this is one man who has been there and has really has depended upon a handgun in many instances to protect his own life and the lives of others. So tell me, Bill, what's your feeling of law enforcement switching over from the revolver to the semi-automatic?
Well, Johnny, I'm really pretty unhappy about it, because I know one thing that two things I think that are pretty obvious. One is that except for a very few very dedicated people, most law enforcement officers are trying to buy something with the automatic that they don't have with the double action revolver, and that's a great big magazine capacity and the ability to shoot it without a whole lot of training. And they think that they can buy what they would have to work really hard to do with the double action revolver. But what they're overlooking is this: in the game that they're playing with, let's say, cooks and police and robbers or whatever, they're playing for keeps. And it's not a business of bang, you lay down and then you get up and walk away. The double action revolver is the only one that you really can depend on. If an automatic, let's go to the double action automatics, which sound great. If you pull the trigger on one of those and you happen to have a dead primer under that hammer, it's going to snap. Then you're dead in the water. All you can do is keep pulling that trigger, or else you ought to be real fast at slapping the hammer some way, and hit that slide back. And in the meantime, the guy with the double action revolver, if it don't fire on the first one, he just stands there and pulls it some more. You come up with a dead one with the automatic, a dead primer, he comes up with a fresh deal. And how long you figure you got to last under those type conditions?
And I do want to mention, of course, Bill Jordan's great book, No Second Place Winner, which is in publication today. It was written a number of years ago, but it's still as factual and worth as much as it was when it was first written, because it has some real thinking involved on the approach to buying guns and personal protection. We highly recommend it. Now, Bill, what would your recommendation be for a new shooter? You know, a lot of people who watch our programs are new shooters. They're buying guns and they haven't owned guns before. A lot of people, especially women, are buying handguns. So someone with all your experience could be a lot of help, or at least give some advice to some of our viewers. So what would you recommend that a new shooter start with as far as handguns for home protection?
Well, if you're speaking of a woman and a man, of course, you might have two different recommendations because a woman's smaller hand. I would certainly go for one of the small revolvers, such as the Lady Smith, maybe a 32 Special, or I believe they got a 32 Magnum out now if they feel like they need a little more oomph. As far as a man is concerned, I'm still going to stick with the double-action revolver, and for both of them for the same reasons. One, it's much safer. You know whether it's ready to shoot because you have to pull the trigger before it shoots. That's one of the things. Of course, with the automatic, you got a safety on it, you got a hammer or not. Some of them don't have a hammer even, so you can see whether it's cocked. You don't have the assurance of what you've got there. But the main thing is that business of being able to continue pulling the trigger and coming up with a fresh round. It's the gun that works out best for the person who is not an expert. They got the thing, the cart before the horse is what's happening. The person who is not an expert should definitely have a double-action revolver. The person who is an expert might get by all right with the automatic if he knows that gun completely, except for that one thing, no second chance.
Well,
that's where the name of that book came from, No Second Place Winner, because no second place winner in a gunfight. You win or you lose.
Well, those of us who read Bill Jordan's columns regularly are aware of his feeling over the revolver versus semi-automatic, and certainly semi-automatics have their place, but I tend to agree with him. I trust and prefer the revolvers for home defense. If I could just have one gun, I believe it would be a revolver, probably a .357, and I'm sure he feels that same way.
Let me say just one more thing before you. If I had to go into a fight and I had nothing but an automatic, I wouldn't feel undressed. I'd go ahead with it. As a matter of fact, I have quite often carried an extra gun in my hip pocket. On my hip in the holster was a double-action revolver. That was the number one boy. Number two boy in a hip pocket in case I ran out of ammunition in that first one. Normally, if I ran out of ammunition, I'd figure it's time to go somewhere else and think about it and then reload.
Reconsider and reload.
Somewhere else.
Well, this is certainly good advice for all of us. Again, Mr. Bill Jordan has seen a lot of confrontations and things that most of us, thankfully, will never see, but he certainly has the experience to back up his advice.
Now, friends, tell me, just how many living legends do you ever get to meet in a lifetime? And certainly to me, Bill Jordan is a huge living legend. He's also a very, very nice person and a good friend and supporter of our program. If you would like information on how to purchase either of his books or information, write to us at the Shootin' Show, 554 Kings Highway, Shreveport, Louisiana. Our zip code is 71104. Or give us a call and leave a message at area 318-222-8515. And we'll tell you how to get a copy of his book, No Second Place Winner, or Mostly Hunting. Very fine readings, and we'll be happy to help you in that regard. So give us a call or write to us, and we'll help you out.
Sure, once in a while you get into stuff you shouldn't, and you like to play make-believe, and sometimes you even try to find things on your own. But kids, if you ever find a gun, stop right there. Don't touch the gun and leave right away to tell your mom, dad, or another adult. You see, guns are not toys. So kids, if you ever do find one, please don't even go near it. This message is a public service of this station and the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
There's a movement in this country to surrender the Second Amendment.
Listen to this. There is no reason for anyone in this country, anyone except a police officer or a military person, to buy, to own, to have, to use a handgun.
Still quoting, the only way to do that is to change the Constitution.
That's not some nobody. That's the president of NBC News.
You see, they want to repeal your constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Well, you can help stop it by joining the NRA.
For just $25, you'll get a year of great magazines and member benefits, and you'll be where all honest gun owners belong, in the NRA.
If you want to keep the rights your founding fathers entrusted to you,
The rights the Constitution guarantees to you.
The rights the NRA protects for you.
call now.
Stay tuned for more of The Shootin' Show after this break for your local cable company or television station. Friends, for the absolute best in monthly shooting magazines, turn to Shooting Times magazine, with all sorts of excellent features on handguns, rifles, shotguns, and black powder by some of your favorite gun writers, such as Dick Metcalf and Rick Jameson and Bill Jordan, just to name a few. Each month, you'll find interesting articles on guns, shooting, reloading, and new products in the firearms industry, along with information on pending legislation of interest to all gun owners. For subscription information, call 1-800-727-4353. Shooting Times, the best there is.
Now, friends, this particular handgun is a Smith & Wesson 629 in .44 Magnum. And this is the stainless steel latest edition of the gun that pretty much began handgun hunting as we know it, certainly here in the United States, because this was the first extremely powerful handgun that really had enough power for deer or black bear with ammunition available at the time that this came out in about 1955. Now, not far behind it at all, and some people will argue that Ruger was first with the Black Hawk in .44 Magnum, but in fact Smith & Wesson was a little bit earlier. And these guns, of course, have a lot of mystique. This is the gun that Dirty Harry used in the movie, and really it's unbelievable the amount of influence that a movie, the Dirty Harry series, had. But at one time these guns were roughly twice what the retail price should have been because of demand after people had gone out and seen the Dirty Harry movies. This gun has an 8 3/8" barrel and has the endurance package. Now, this is one that I really like carrying and shooting because it weighs about the same as the 629 Classic with the full underlug barrel with a 5-inch barrel, yet you have the advantages of the longer barrel, which certainly gives you more burn time for the bullet in the barrel, so you get more velocity. And really, for long-range shooting, you won't believe just how accurate this gun is. And we do want to commend the good people at Smith & Wesson because they really are making some excellent products these days and making them available to the general public. This gun is a bargain as compared to some of the other .44 Magnums and is every bit as rugged as anything that Smith & Wesson has ever built. In fact, more so in many ways. It, of course, is a 6-shot revolver, and the cylinder swings out to the left just like any other Smith & Wesson revolver, and you have, of course, speed loaders available for it. You know, to borrow a line from Crocodile Dundee when he pulled out his big knife, I'd say this is a gun because it is a most impressive piece of equipment. I have replaced the factory wood grips with the Packmeyer gripper, which I particularly like on the in-frame Smith & Wessons. And I tell you what, friends, this is almost a rifle because this gun will shoot into about 3 inches for a 5-shot group at 100 yards, and it's so easy to shoot well. You can scope the gun, or you can use the very fine open sights with it. So let's take a look at it in shooting just a moment. In fact, let's chronograph some loads and show you just what an advantage that the longer barrel is on the Smith & Wesson 629. Okay, friends, we're going to shoot a couple of the 180 grain Remington extremely hot loads, factory loads, through our 5.5 inch Super Blackhawk, and then we're going to compare that to the longer 8+ inch barrel on the Smith & Wesson 629. Be sure and check my hearing protection. Well, let's see what kind of velocities we get. Be sure it's in good, because these things are loud. All right. Okay, this is a pretty good average. It's 1,549 feet per second. Can we get that on our, can you see that? I hope you can. All right, friends, let's take our long barrel Smith & Wesson here with the same cartridge, and let's see how much game we get from the extra 3 or so inches of barrel length. So 1,693 feet per second. All right, friends, now let's, in fact, 1,693, almost 1,700 feet per second. That's almost 150 feet per second faster due to the extra barrel length. Let me tell you, that is excellent performance. Now, you talk about a deer load, that 180 grain jacketed hollow point from Remington, that would be a deer a hunting load that would be just superior. Let's try the 240 grain bullet now, again out of our 5.5 inch Ruger with compared velocities. So a 240 grain bullet, that is a near maximum load that I have worked up myself. So let's see what it does in our chronograph. All right, true to form, it ran 1,326 feet per second. All right, let's try that same 240 grain near max hand load through our long barrel Smith & Wesson. Remember, in the 5.5 inch barrel Ruger, it went 1,326 feet per second. Let's see what it does out of this 629. Be sure my hearing protection's in. So it picked up, another over 100 feet per second. It goes 1,447 for that particular one. Friends, I tell you, this 629 has such a smooth action. It's such a pleasure to shoot. It's a big gun, but it's not that heavy. It handles so well. The balance is so nice. And, of course, the 629 Classics and Classic DXs, which are very fine guns, have been getting a lot of the attention as far as Smith & Wesson 44 Magnums go. But I tell you what, the standard model 29/629s really deserve another look, because, as I said earlier, they have the endurance package. They will stand up to many, many thousands of full charge loads. You know, friends, one advantage the 44 Magnum has is, like a 357 Magnum, it will also shoot 38 specials. The 44 Magnum also will shoot 44 specials, which is a much, much milder loading and very pleasant to shoot for target practice. So let's do that with this 629. Let's shoot it. And we have some milder target ammunition in now for our steel targets, because the full charge 44 Magnum will just destroy my steel targets. And then we'll shoot our water jug here on the end. So let's take a look and see what it looks like. And remember, you've still got that full 44 Magnum capability. The great Smith & Wesson 629.
Get ready to order the most exciting videotape ever offered on television. It's the best of guns, guns, guns. 60 minutes of action, excitement, and the most amazing display of firearms available on video. Pistols, rifles, shotguns, and machine guns. See Bob Munden, the fastest gun who ever lived. USPSA pistol competition, the Steel Challenge, U.S. Marine Corps weapons, machine guns from around the world, and lots of surprises. If you like guns, you'll love the best of Guns, Guns, Guns. Available only through this special TV offer. Fast draw competition, hand cannon, Soldier of Fortune firepower, how to shoot fast, and lots more like you've never seen it before in this 60-minute action-packed video. Use your credit card to order toll-free now. Call 1-800-942-8273. You'll receive the best of Guns, Guns, Guns for just $29.95 plus $4 shipping. By ordering now, you'll receive this 28-page gun video catalog absolutely free. So call with your credit card right now, 1-800-942-8273, or send check or money order to 7888 Ostro Street, Suite A, San Diego, California, 92111.
Now, friends, if you're an avid shooter or enthusiast, or you just like to read a lot of interesting information about guns, well, you need a subscription to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. They have 3 publications monthly, and trust me, on this one, you will find a lot of interesting things. Some of it you didn't even know was out there for sale in Shotgun News. You can write to them at Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska. That zip code is 68902. Their phone number is area 402-463-4589. For MasterCard or Visa subscriptions only, call them at 1-800-345-6923. Shotgun News, now we all need that. And we want to remember the good folks down at Britton's at 517 Louisiana Avenue in Shreveport, Louisiana. Now, friends, they are very helpful to us in supplying ammunition and guns for us to test, and there's some very fine people. If you're anywhere in the Arklatex area and you need shooting supplies, please consider Britton's in Shreveport. And if you're coming through Shreveport, be sure and stop in, because you might catch yours truly down there looking at some new gun that we need to test for the program. So you can write to them at Britton's, 517 Louisiana Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana. That zip code is 71101. Or if you have a question regarding reloading supplies or the availability of certain firearms, give them a call, area 318-221-4131. This is Johnny Rowland, your host, and we sincerely hope you've enjoyed this week's shooting show. Till next week, see you on another shooting show.